Hi, everyone.
It's an honor to be here. This is just I think it's the best architecture conference. And thank you, Anders, yes, and Sigurd for putting it together and drawing the world together. I think never before in our time we really needed to bring people together. That's what we're doing. Okay, so we'll be talking about architecture in a 21st century paradigm shift. We'll be talking about how, oh my God, guys, do you know you're in a new time? We're in the age of biology. Abigail, stay with me. The OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, announced, I think in 2012, they said, we're in a new age. This is the age of biology, the 21st century. Next. I'll go on, next. 19th century age of engineering. Who knew? You know, the first trains, cameras, Eiffel Tower, you know, things that, it changed how we live. It changed what we thought possible. It changed how cities were built. Trains impacted everything. Next. 20th century, my generation, the first plastics, imagine. My dad was a chemical engineer, and his first job was making plastics. And now I go to the beach where I live in Boston, and what do I pick up? Plastics, you know. First radar, first computers. But now we're in the 21st century. Anyone know what this is? What? DNA. Did you know what happened in 2003? For the first time, they sequenced 21st century thing. They sequenced human DNA. First time. They now know that every one of your cells, 86% of the DNA, is the same as in a zebrafish. Who knew that? I'm vegetarian. I can't eat fish. What's this? Neurons. How many neurons do you have? Something like 86 to 100 billion, and you have 100 million in your gut. So trust your gut. You've got neurons there too, right? Oh, now in the 21st century, people, double amputees, run in marathons. You know, since Oscar Pistorius, 2012, he ran in the Olympics. I'm from Boston. We have the oldest continuous marathon in Boston. Every year you see the amputees running. I never saw that in the 21st century paradigm shift. So the big question is, well, what does this mean for architecture, design, planning? Next. Well, click. What it means is now we have the tools to see how people actually take in Palladio. You know, this is eye tracking. And this woman doesn't know that her eyes are moving 45 times when she looks at Villa Rotunda. But I do, because I'm eye tracking her. And I can see exactly what she's doing. By the way, this is the same tool that now in Massachusetts, 3 business schools are using this. Right? They have to. You need to know exactly how people experience things. Next. Take this. Next. And so, like your mom might have told you, everyone looks at the world a little differently. So this person's looking at it this way. Next. And so what the people do, it's so interesting, they really go for stats. They'll have 30 to 35 people look at this so they can sequence. They're very interested in the TTFF, the time to first fixation, where people look first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay? And they want to know, you know, they can tell, you know, how quickly someone actually found, the most people found the center, the second, and where they look third, fourth, and fifth. And when I looked at this, it kind of blew my mind, because I'm saying, oh, now I know why the building is so famous. It's all the statues. You could actually make an architectural thesis that if Palladio hadn't had all the statues there, it couldn't possibly have been as famous. Because non-consciously, you can see that's where they're driving people to look. Next. Oh, and this is how we set this up. This is a pilot study. I think this is a little expanded. I'm using the same tech that Honda, BMW, GM, Tesla use. The biggest purchaser worldwide of all these biometric tools are the car companies. It's a little scary. And iMotions is a company based in Copenhagen. They also have a Boston office and a Singapore office. I've been working with them for about 10 years now. And what they do is they also track brain waves, facial expressions, heart rate, the galvanic skin response, sweat glands. They want to really understand the human experience. All right. Next. And so for architecture, it's quite interesting. Can you press the... For architecture, this we did for the city of New York. This is a public library. You can actually, the city recently renovated the library, and you can actually see how someone looks at it as they approach the building. And then, it stopped a little soon, but that's okay. We photoshopped out the arched windows, and now if you press the video, you can see that what happens here, that without conscious awareness, a person's going to look at it differently. The non-conscious directs you. So next. So you can see the difference, that people are directed to look at the detail. When the detail's not there, they'll look differently at the building. It's quite impactful for architecture, because then you can understand the impact of your design decision. Next. So this is just a little bit explaining about what eye tracking does. It monitors and records eye movements, most of which you don't realize you're making. Fixations are something that the advertisers really follow. They refer to the stable points where eye remains fixated for 100 milliseconds or more. That's when you take in most of the detail. Saccades is the time between that. Next. Okay. So you can really see, I think you can go to the next slide. You can really see, how people take in the building differently. Next. This is kind of, it really intrigued me, that the time to first fixation, you find the door a little quicker, 0.9 seconds when there's no windows, versus 1.2 seconds you'll find the door. But what's really fascinating for me as an architect is that by 12 seconds, half the people were looking beyond the building. They couldn't park at the building. Whereas here, by 10 seconds, they're beyond the building, then whoop, by 13 seconds, they're back looking at the building. Okay, so I've asked about 700 people this question: where would you rather wait while I go park the car? You're going to wait with the books. Do you want to wait in front of this library, or do you want to wait in front of this library? Which library do you think they want to wait in front of? On the right, yeah. But they won't know why. But I'll have an idea why, because non-consciously they could anchor more easily here. That's why. Next. Okay. So next, where would you rather write? So, okay, next. All right, and this just tells a little bit the science of how it works. It shines infrared lights, it tracks the refraction. Next. And again, explaining what it's doing. Next. And this is how it was set up. Next. And now what's happened with COVID and everything, people couldn't go into labs, so the tech world's very smart. They realized, okay, let's do eye tracking without having to set up a lab. So they invented eye motions online, and that allows you to use any computer with webcam, send a study up to the cloud, have a person download it, and then the person's laptop with a webcam will actually record their eyes and their facial expressions. Next. Okay, and there we go. That's how it's set up. Next. And so what you do is you can present two images. By the way, where do you think people will look? At this building or this building? The left, right, instantly. That's a fascinating thing. When you work with this tech, it's a new lens to see reality, and you realize before we're architects, we're face-a-techs, and biologically before we're face-a-techs, we're eye-a-techs. We're always looking for things like eyes, and that's what you see here. We didn't tell people where to look. That's exactly where they focus. And then also eye tracking, they combine it with other software that measures how your facial expressions change as you look at something. Often you're not consciously aware of it. This rolled out of the MIT Media Lab and now has been sold to a company called Smart Eye. It's based in Sweden, and it provides the biometric tools to most of the car companies around the world. Next. And this is basically the algorithms for figuring out what people are feeling. And honestly, this software is dangerous because you play with it for a while, you start reading people differently. Because you get more, oh yeah, I know he doesn't really trust me. You start reading you start reading them differently because it's algorithmic, you can figure it out. It's kind of scary, guys. Next, okay, so next. And this is, I can show you this. This is an example. This is an existing parking garage, and a friend of mine who's good with Matisse-like prints, she made that one. Then we just did a quick pilot study. Next. That non-consciously, that's the impactful of art, is that when the art is there, people, and the fractals, they immediately look at that. When it's not there, they look down the street. That's incredible, okay? before something's built, I can predict if people want to sell Girl Scout cookies in front of it. They'll want to sell something in front of that. They'll never think of doing it there. Get it? Next. Oh, and then this gets even crazier. You can also measure when people smiled as they look at something. And so this aggregates the dots. And here, you can see, this was a pilot study. 4 people smiled, 10 people smiled once when they got there. Next. And then what happens here, this is amazing. So look, 5 people smiled 3 times in 14 seconds. That's crazy, right? When you smile, it releases oxytocin. That's the hugging hormone. You feel happier. You could almost make a case to the schools that a child walking to school seeing this would arrive happier. Get it? You see the power of this? It's incredible. Next. Okay? So you can start to understand a lot. Go on. Including, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So thanks again for having us. It's really wonderful to be here. So we'll set a little bit of the context, as Anne mentioned, and then we'll show this American example, and then our really exciting results from images that you folks in Oslo sent to us, which was really wonderful. So this is just to explain, in the US, back in 2020, there's a group called the National Civic Arts Society. They conducted a Harris poll where they asked 2,000 Americans, which building do you prefer? And they showed 14 pairs of images, 7 traditional, 7 modern, and asked people, what do you think? 72% of folks, regardless of their age, gender, socioeconomic status, religion, or political party, opted for traditional architecture. So, fast forward, we were asked to do a biometric survey to understand if biology and non-consciously folks were reporting the same information. So this is an example of 2 of the buildings. These are both civic buildings paid for by the taxpayer, and as you can see, attention changes entirely based on the ornamentation and detail on the facade. And just like Anne was saying, when it comes to the experience of the public realm, the experience of public space, everyone has ownership of it, regardless of if you are a town local or if you're just visiting. That's going to impact the way that you perceive yourself and the environment around you.
Let me just say one thing.
Sure.
So it's interesting. So they're really into stats, this science. So the dwell time, 4.7 seconds. We didn't tell people. This was like, I think, it was like 12 seconds?
12-second exposure time.
We didn't tell them what to do. Their brain made them go here. 4.7 seconds, only 3 seconds there.
Right. So this is really powerful when you compare that to people's conscious feedback, where they're telling you what they feel, how they feel. This proves that in an objective, statistically significant way. This is another pair of images, same thing, both civic buildings. Attention is entirely different, and it's almost double what the building on the right
there we go.
asks for. This is probably my favorite pairing of the 2, because I think this building in Utah looks a bit like a box that this building maybe would have lived inside. Look at that. People are looking directly at entablature. They're looking towards the front door. They're looking at the form. They can more easily navigate to the front door in this building than in this building. Where is the front door here? I have an appointment. I'm rushing. I feel like I'm going to be late, and now I'm stressed out, and I can't speak clearly to the person that I'm meeting with. You know, these are non-conscious stimuli that are constantly impacting the way that we actively perceive ourselves and the world around us. And this, we're also looking at the emotional responses here. Could you play that clip? Thank you.
So this, you can tell when he experienced joy, what he was looking at.
Exactly.
It's a little difficult to see it. You can actually tell what the stimuli was when he starts smiling.
Exactly. Same thing.
See? And that's where it is. He's right on that building. Isn't that fascinating? Mm-hmm. This is our world today, guys.
And now we're looking at this building.
And this building, this is great.
Can you press play here? Thank you. There's no positive reaction. There is no emotional experience. Partially, like Anne was mentioning before, our brains don't register blankness. We don't see anything in a blank facade because our brain disregards it as valuable. We evolved on the Sahara, as Dr. Burris mentioned yesterday. We are constantly looking for patterns for safety. This is an evolutionary survival tactic, you know? And what happens then is we move differently than we are consciously aware of. Our perception happens after everything else that is coming up for us. Next.
Well,
So now we have
Oslo Study.
Yeah, so thank you to all of you folks who sent pictures and videos. This was really fun to get a preview of the city before we were here. These are 2 examples of here.
We gave people, what, 7 seconds, I think it was?
Yes.
7 seconds, and we didn't tell them what to do, and look what they did.
Right.
Just like they did in the States. you
Right.
know?
It's a shared visual language. We speak many different languages, but as human beings, our brains and bodies are much more similar than they are different. So if we're able to understand the visual syntax of the spaces that we're inhabiting, we can use that language to impact policy, to impact health, to impact protections for folks, that they have more positive experiences in the cities that they're in, which will then turn into community building, which is great for the economy and health of any place, anywhere.
So this is interesting. We wanted to kind of zoom in on the building, and it was quite interesting what we discovered. Keep going. That the fixation is always greater on the traditional.
So again,
As people, because it offers more and more detail, that's the brilliance about detail in ornament. You get more and more intricate, you see more and more new things, so it keeps your brain engaged and focused.
exactly.
Keep going fast. Yeah.
So there, you're looking at proportionality, you're looking at detail. Yes, yes.
And they just nothing on the side. That's fascinating. Next.
Same thing.
Nothing. Nothing. Oh, this is a great example. Where do you think people will look?
Right? So pretty amazing. And we also asked folks, like we were mentioning before, it's really important to have the non-conscious response as well as the conscious response, because folks don't always tell you how they're feeling, but our biology doesn't lie. Our facial expressions don't lie. That's why we can make a little eye, and you're going to make it back at me. Our mirror neurons are looking
there you go.
back and forth.
I forgot it.
I didn't have to say anything.
go.
You just did it back,
Oh, this is fun.
But people are looking. They're like, okay, they're focusing on that building, focusing on that point. And, could you zoom out just a hair so we can see the results at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah. Go back. Oh, we'll tell you what the results were. Go back. I guess the results aren't there. But yeah, in this one, the results were, I think, 50 people preferred this. 4 people had no preference, and 2 people preferred that one. It was amazing. It was just amazing. Like, it was amazing, the answer. Next.
Same thing here. The attention is entirely different. You're looking at the words here. You're looking at probably the most attractive part of this building. Otherwise, there's not the richness that we're looking at here.
But again, look at the focus. If you go back a second, look at the focus on the ornament. That's why ornament really matters. It's fascinating.
So then we asked folks the same question.
And this one, it was 100%.
Yeah.
Favored this building.
Yeah,
Nobody
I can see
liked
there.
that
58 people voted for one, and 2 people said they didn't have a preference. And these are videos, if you could play.
So this data that we just showed you, how do they get it? They get it from looking at individual participants. Okay? And you see, that's where they don't know their brain is doing that, but we do. And aggregating that data created the heat maps you just saw. And what's interesting is the traditional architecture makes the fixation points that modern can't.
Right.
This is another one. Yeah,
so this is just screen grab where you can sort of see the sequencing of how someone is actually walking down a street. What did they see first? They look at a car, and then they look at the first floor, and then they look over. What does that experience mean for the everyday pedestrian? And then how does that experience impact your health and well-being overall? Because if you have an elevated cortisol, which is with the stress hormone, if your cortisol is elevated, that exists, or that provokes other comorbidities like fatigue and mental health issues. So there's all of these factors that are not separated, and the built environment is directly responsible just as much as any other piece of health. And then this one's fascinating. Could you press play, please? Thank you.
This is great.
We look outside of the building. No one's looking at the urbanism.
You only look at the sky.
Yeah. The fixations don't exist in these blank facades, as we were mentioning before.
They go to the sky.
Right.
So you're not going to think of walking down the street because non-consciously your brain is telling you there's no place there.
Right. You're not going to make a memory. You're not going to make meaning. Or if you do, it's likely to be negative.
Next.
So,
yeah, look at that.
Right. Pretty cool.
Oh,
And this is, can you play this as well? So this is an aggregated version of what we just saw with those
This
yellow.
is all 60 people looking, aggregating with heat maps where they all looked.
Yeah, it's called the dynamic heat map, which is.
See, these advertisers who use this, they don't fool around.
Right.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, oh good, we're good. Good.
Right. So the advertisers need to know directly if you're going to engage with their product, because that is an immediate return on what they are putting into the product and into the development. So there's all of this consumer research. We'd like to pivot on a larger scale to include studies like this when it comes to proposing a new community center in your town. You want to have people's conscious feedback, but also objective statistics that prove what our intuition already knows. Because unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, where you need to really over-explain something that feels right. It's actually providing a new language to add to the stories folks are already telling, and I think that's the power of bringing this information to architecture.
Well, this is really fun. Can we click the video?
This is another video, thank you.
This is really quick. What you really see here is how the brain non-consciously is hardwired to follow people, even their backsides.
Right.
So you see the red is really on there. So often when you do these studies, you have to do them. It's difficult because you have to not have any people in them.
Right. Otherwise, it skews the results.
But I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We're a social species. Humans look for humans, and that's how we knew that we were safe.
Look at that.
From our development as young children, those initial relationships create the framework for the rest of your life. This is an example of 2 buildings here in Oslo. Obviously, the attention is on the ornamentation. As we were just explaining, there's much more going on in terms of the contrast and composition to the building on the right, which garners more attention. And what's really exciting as well, we were talking about the emotional experience a couple minutes ago, and how all of these beautiful muscles in our face are related to emotional responses that we're having. Those are the facial action units that we mentioned before. And what we're able to do is create emotional heat maps, which is a combination of the attention and the emotional experience.
So the emotional heat map is the pink gauze.
Right.
So where people were smiling, you can detect more of it's around there in the pink.
So just like when we have the regular attention map, it glows red where there's the most attention, yellow where there's slightly less, green where there's even less, and where there's no pigmentation, there's no attention. This is showing you where someone is experiencing a positive emotion. And much more of the attention is being paid to the building on the right. Here we go. We've got, the attention is different.
2 different streets, and look how many more broadly the positive emotions are on the traditional.
Right. So I think
this is something that politicians and mayors need to start using.
Right.
So I will just talk briefly, why do the first fixations matter so much? And why? Because of our brain architecture. The problem is we don't have a modern brain. The brain you and I have, it hasn't changed for 40,000 years. It's still a brain of a primate on the savannah. And so because of our brain architecture, where we evolved was so dynamic, we have to respond before we actually know what we're looking at. Okay, so we're hard-wired to without secure fixations, our brain puts. Without secure fixations, our brains puts us in alert mode without our conscious awareness or control. What happens? The thalamus is called the brain's relay station. It's the relay station which is directing to your amygdala, which releases cortisol before you even consciously know what you're looking at. When you have a secure fixation, like you do on the traditional architecture, the cortisol doesn't get released. That's what's basically happening. Okay, so now we see how our brain architecture basically is reflected in traditional architecture around the world. The fact is, the Taj Mahal, Hagia Sophia, the ornate symmetries, organized complexity, it's all the same, really. It's preset what we need to see because of our brain architecture. We can't handle blankness. It puts us into an alert state without our conscious awareness. Next. And this is from eye motions again. It's kind of interesting that before we even are consciously aware of what we're looking at, our pupil dilation, our respiration, our skin conductance, our heart rate are already responding. Okay?
Right.
And so that's why, in a way, they're using this tech, right? They want to understand. We have a feeling brain that thinks, That's not what I was taught, but that's the truth. We have a feeling brain that thinks, and now we have the science to show how people will feel before something's even built.
And it's multimodal, which is a really important thing when we think about accessibility for folks. We're not just looking at visual attention, we're trying to understand the broader picture. So if there was more funding available for this Oslo study, we could have done EEGs, where we're measuring approach and avoidance in terms of your brain waves of experiencing something. There's all of these wonderful opportunities to ask really good questions, bring in multidisciplinary experts, designers, townfolk, and celebrate the stories of placemaking. And this is a tool that we can use to strengthen what folks are already asking for.
Okay, so we do have, go back. Sorry. So I think what's happening, in a way, you sense this as a conference now, interest in this is exploding. And Routledge asked us a year and a half ago to put together a book about how new understandings in neuroscience are changing how we understand the built environment. This is going to be coming out now in September. We have 50 authors from 4 continents in 30 chapters. And the chapter, one of them is all about the human need for connection, kind of like what you guys are talking about, and the neuroscience now understanding that. To build a better world, we need to understand how we work. There's a great Steve Jobs quote: the broader our understanding of the human experience, the better design we will have. He's exactly right. Next. This book came out, the 2nd edition. It's the first book in history with 36 images of eye-tracked architecture. Next. And we're realizing, again, there's such a lag in what architects are taught, because still in countries like the United States, there's no psychology or biology requirement to get a degree or license in architecture.
Yet you're designing human habitat. Like, it's wild. We are animals before we are anything else, and the fundamental understanding is false.
So we're trying to get these out. 2 of the 5 courses are free, and there's so much that we can do now to improve our understanding of the human experience and design better for people.
So thank you.